So, welcome back. This is going to be our first episode of the Letting Go series. Welcome to my little quiet place, my room. I'm so sorry, but we should really be calling this Quiet Time with Melissa, since this is the only quiet time that I have to myself when my kids are upstairs sleeping. It's like my little safe haven, my little escape, my little den. So, today, I wanted to share with you guys and discuss our mental state when we're first dating, because I feel like that's something that I never really paid attention to and I never really focused on until that relationship. And it was once it ended that I actually paid attention to where my mental state was when I got in that relationship with that person. The truth is that where our headspace is at when we're looking to date or we're looking to get to know somebody is super crucial. It's so important because a lot of times we don't really focus on things that we should be focusing on. If our headspace is wrong, we're not really looking at things that we're supposed to be looking at. We're not analyzing ourselves. We're not looking to see if we're good to move forward and to start a relationship with somebody. We're just, like, it's just something that really needs to be analyzed before taking a step forward and choosing to jump into a relationship with somebody. So for me, I'll share some of my life story with you guys just so you can have an understanding of what I refer to and see if maybe it's applied to you or if you've ever gone through it or if you know somebody has gone through it. When I got in my last relationship, I was going through like my year of hell. Like everything was falling apart. Everything was bad. It was like life kept throwing lemons after lemons after lemons to me, and I just couldn't catch my break. I couldn't even try to make a lemonade. That's how bad it was. Just because once one thing settled, another thing just came overlapped, and like I couldn't breathe. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that year went for me so that you can understand why I say that our headspace and our mental state is very important. And I don't say this to be judged. I'm not saying this looking for pity. I'm not saying this for any other purpose than to see if it could help anybody out there. And, I don't take pride in my mistakes in my life. I don't take pride where I have done things that maybe I shouldn't have done or I should have handled differently. But this is me being open and vulnerable with you guys, fully aware that this can go anywhere, right? And that anybody can see this. But you know what? It's like I said in my introduction, God put this in my heart to do, and I'm going to do it. And I pray that He guides me in this process so that I can word things correctly so that the message and the story can get across according to His will. So from 2018 all the way to 2021, I had met a Moroccan gentleman who lived in Morocco. We carried a long distance relationship. We met online through Facebook. And I did travel to Morocco twice. I met him and his family. They were beautiful, beautiful individuals. I can never speak anything wrong about them. And, I ended up deciding to bring that person over with a K1 visa, as in like 90-day fiance, which is ironic, right? Because I was hooked on that show too right after my process started. But I decided to bring him over, and I started the process in fall of 2019, which was right before the pandemic happened. And, we didn't know that the pandemic was going to take place, so we didn't know how long it was going to take for him to actually come from Morocco and for us to be able to proceed with our process. And so, we started the process in 2019, September, and pandemic hit, and we were distraught as a country, right, and as a whole, all around the world for a few years. And then in 2021, which I call my year of hell, came, And, in January, I was able to travel to him. In January 2021, I was able to travel to Morocco with him. Not with him, but to him, to see him and his family. I came back. In March, I settled into a new car. And all of a sudden, we found out that he was coming to America on April 1st of 2021. And despite that was a blessing and it was something that we wanted and we were looking forward to and waiting for so long to happen, I knew deep down inside I wasn't mentally prepared for that because I had a lot going on at that time. I was living with my mother and my children, and we were cramped up in a 2-bedroom apartment. She had 1 bedroom for herself. I had the other bedroom for me and my 4 kids, and it was just very difficult. And we were clashing heads all the time. We were fighting. She had created such animosity. She had turned my family against me. A lot of drama. We'll never see eye to eye on that story, but that's how I feel, and that's my version of it. And so, unfortunately, he knew that I was going through a lot of that before coming, and he always tried to, advise me and calm me down to it. And so when he came finally and he had to come into that environment, he saw exactly what I meant and what I was going through. And so, of course, it changed his perspective. Now, not only was I dealing, like I said, with the pandemic, the kids being homeschooled, the new car, now him arriving and living with us in a cramped up apartment, and so much going on. I was also going through a job change because I was working in Queens, living in the Bronx, and just with the pandemic clearing up, traffic patterns had changed. My job was requiring me to come in at certain times that were just very strenuous on me and was sleep depriving me. And so I decided to do a job change, and I ended up going back to an old job that I had left due to its toxic environment. But I thought that things would be different because there had been such a time gap that I thought, and some of the individuals had left, that if I went back, it wasn't going to be as crazy. Like, in my head, I had it set that I was going to go back to that job and just strictly focus on my paycheck, and then that would be it, and that there would be no issues and no drama. So while changing jobs, I was preparing for my wedding with the Moroccan, because obviously, when you bring somebody over on a K1 visa, you're supposed to marry within 90 days of their entry. So now I'm overwhelmed trying to prep for a wedding, family animosity, trying to settle him down, not to mention that he came right when Ramadan started. And, for Muslims, that's very sacred and very important. And I wanted to make that very important and sacred for him, because not only did he leave his family and his friends behind, he didn't know anybody here. I was trying to keep up with the meal prepping patterns and the meals that they ate, and I wanted to do extra. So I was like balancing work, the kids, cooking regular food for us and the kids, and then trying to meal prep for him and, make it special for him. That he was dealing with like the cultural shock, which is a real thing, and I couldn't understand it because I was already feeling overwhelmed and there were many things happening. Then we ended up getting married in June of that year. Then right after, I decided that I wanted to sell a house in Florida that my father had purchased for me many, many years ago, and that was like a emotional thing for me in its own, because that was my dream to move over there. But due to certain circumstances with the children, I wasn't able to move. So I figured it was best to sell the house over there and buy a house over here. Use that money as a down payment. So I was now, settling into a new job, settling into married life, still cramped up living at home with my mom and the kids and him. And like, it was just a lot going on. Finally sold the house and then started looking for a house out here, like in August, only to come and find out at the end of August of 2021 that I was diagnosed with cervical precancer. So see, lemons just keep getting thrown at me, and like, this was a real thing for me. This was a real problem for me. And so now I was balancing my marriage going downhill because we just started like having so many issues because we weren't seeing eye to eye. There were many factors that were like causing clashes, and just because I was so overwhelmed, I guess, I look at it now and I don't think that I had the patience that I should have had or that I was required to have at that given time to handle things differently. And so, like, the pre-cancer was like the icing on the cake for me. at that given point. So then I realized I needed surgery while shopping for a house, closed on a house in October, got surgery in November. My marriage had gone downhill by September, and it was just back to back to back things, you know, but we tried to stay together. Meanwhile, all of a sudden, sorry, there's like a little thing in the air. um, Whoever said I had ADD. So yeah, anyways, in that process, one of my ex-colleagues, who was my boss's son, also started hitting on me, and it was somebody that I had a history with the first time I worked at that company. And trying to be respectful in my marriage and whatever, like, they were very convincing and enticing in their own way, and they caused a huge distraction on my relationship. And so it's something that I have to live with now, and it's something that I regret, because I wish that I wouldn't have been stubborn. But going through what I was going through and not getting the attention, the affection that I wanted at home, I kind of fell for the attention that I was getting elsewhere, and it's a horrible thing, and it's something I'm not proud of. I didn't get to cheat exactly within the time that I was living with the Moroccan and that we was married together, but like, feelings did happen and communication did happen, and that is a form of cheating, and I'm fully aware of it, and it's not something that I'm proud of. And then that caused a bigger strain and a bigger distraction. And so I ended up filing for divorce right away. When there's a lot of this and a lot of this, you don't really get to remember what's in here or in here. And so you kind of lose the true focus, and you lose the true emotions and the incentives of the things that you do and why you do it. So a lot of people, claim that he was here for his papers and stuff. So yeah, I did file for the divorce. Marriage didn't last long at all. And then, I had mentioned to the boss's son, like, that he should speak to his father, because I didn't want things to come to light the wrong way, and then it would create a bigger conflict for me. I'm a very respectful person in a lot of ways, and so I figured honesty and modesty would have been better, not realizing that maybe it was like the worst thing to do, because all that happened is that I got insulted, and I got thrown all over the floor with words, that hurt a lot as a mom and as the woman and as a person, that I didn't want to hear. And so, at that point, like, I was just carrying so many different types of pain and hurt, and I felt so lonely and empty that I'd come home from work, and I focused on my kids. I gave them whatever they needed, fed them, cooked for them, checked homework, made sure they were bathed, put them into bed. And then I'd find myself with moments in the night where I was just lonely, I felt alone. I would just sit in my bed, and I wouldn't know what to do with myself. And my mind was eating at me as an overthinker that I am. And so, like, one day I had realized that Facebook had launched, like, this, the dating section of it. And, like, that was new to me. And I was like, you know what? Out of curiosity, and just for some type of distraction, I'm gonna create an account and go through with it. And I did. And I think I created it on a Wednesday or a Tuesday. And then, like, guys are guys. And I got hit up by a lot of random people, and just no one really caught my interest except this one person. And, like, that one person, our communication flowed, and we connected in ways that I felt like I really hadn't connected with somebody in a long time. It was just natural. It felt good, And so within 2 days of talking to that person, I got hit with, like, the biggest, saddest news that I have ever gotten hit with, because they told me that my grandmother, who was so close and so dear to me, was like, on her way out. And that was like, bam, like, that was the icing on the cake for me, because it's just like, after everything happening, like, the last thing I needed to hear and know was that my grandma was, like, on her way out. Like, she was, like, she meant the world to me, like, God only knows. And so I had mentioned it to him because I got the call while I was at work, and I mentioned it to him. And he had gone through something similar like a year before or two, and so we connected instantly, and we related to each other, and we just talked, and he was there. And that's all that it took, because with everything going on and with trying to survive so many different things happening in my life, back to back to back, because I there were certain situations, like especially like with people, that I should have let air out, or I should have healed, or I should have not allowed, but I didn't realize that then, that it just caused so much harm to myself, and like it blurred my mental to the point that I decided, like, you know what, like, I really like this person, like I really fell for the person hard and quick, but it was because, it was somebody who was there. It was somebody who was giving me attention, was giving me affection, was giving me their time, was talking to me, was, it was something that I needed, but it wasn't something that I should have jumped into. And because my mental was like so messed up already, and because I felt lonely, and because I was going past traumas after, sicknesses, after life challenges and things like that, like I didn't really take the time that I needed to heal from anything. I didn't give myself the time to get to know the person, and I didn't sit back at all in any of that phase, of those phases. I kept jumping and jumping and jumping, trying to go through the hoops of life. And that's why I say that, like, mental health is something that's so important, because we don't really analyze ourselves a lot of the time when we're making a decision. And if we're going through a lot of stuff, our emotional state is affected, and so we become vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable, we're not very logical, And if you are, God bless you. Comment below, tell me how to be, because I'm learning now. It's something that I've been trying to work on, and I'm learning little by little, because it is very sacred. But yeah, that's my whole point with this whole video and this whole message is psychoanalyze your mental state before you choose to jump into a relationship with somebody, before you choose to take the next step with somebody. Because a lot of times, if you're in a good place, they say that the universe conspires and will help you and will like bring things to you that are of good. They say if you're not seeking, it will find you. All these types of things. But if you're not in a good state mentally, and you're going through things, you're gonna be irrational, and you're gonna make decisions that you're not gonna think clearly on, and you're not gonna think through, and that can jeopardize you later down the line. I'm sure some of you have gone through that. For me, I didn't realize what that meant for me at that moment. I took it for what it was, and I accepted what I was getting because it was what I thought I needed at the moment. But in reality, what I should have done was just take a step back, cry out my emotions, deal with the loneliness, because yes, despite I'm a mom, despite I have kids, we get lonely. Mothers get lonely. Our kids are our lives, and we'll do anything for them, and we'll sacrifice for them. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we also need love. We also need to be held, taken care of, feel like a woman, and a lot of other things that go into play with that, And so maybe selfishly, I do regret, because I was seeking for myself at that moment, and I really didn't take things into consideration that I should have, especially when it came to the kids, or my, my own sanity, or my own growing and self-love. But it's how we learn. We go through things and we learn from them. And if we don't learn from them, God will make sure to put them back in your life one way or another, or in another shape or form, or even through another person, just to make sure that he gets that message through to you until you get the point across. So with that said, How's your mental before you go into that relationship?